What is up, Root Scrapers? This is Root95 here, coming out with a brand new series kind of thing on my channel. This isn't really a gameplay kind of series, this is let's discuss. I mentioned this on Twitter previously, discussed it and seen if you guys would be interested in it. Basically, this is going to be me reporting / commenting and discussing current events around the world, and also gaming news as well. It's just going to be basically me talking about things that are happening and my thoughts on them, seeing what your thoughts are and stuff like that. So the first ever Let's Discuss idea is going to be something that I just saw on Facebook today, and it is the first ever walkout by NHS junior doctors in Britain. Now this is the first time this has ever happened in our country, where our junior doctors up to, I believe it's consultant level, will be walking out of and basically, nope, we're on strike, industrial strike for 2 days, 26th and 27th of April, between the hours of 8 AM to 5 PM. Now this is an extremely big deal. Now, and if you haven't had any kind of background, basically the government that we have in government right now, the Tory government, which is not a very popular party here up in Scotland, they are absolutely despised here in Scotland. And they're actually quite despised mostly in the northern England as well. It's really only the south of England that really are conservative, which is one of the key things that are really unfair and undemocratic about the whole political system here in the UK, is that really the south of England gets the say over everyone else. I mean, Scotland is about 5 million people, roughly, approximately off the top of my head, living in Scotland. There is more than that in London alone. So the entire country of Scotland could vote one way on a particular issue, and then London alone could outvote them, which is insanely undemocratic. But yeah, so the Conservative Party, they're completely not that very popular apart from the south. They're the current government, because there's no other political party that even comes close to combating the Conservative Party. So they're trying to bludgeon through this new kind of contract for hours, and I think they're also trying to reduce the weekend pay for junior doctors. I've not really caught too much, I've not really kept up to date with it as much as I should have, but this is me starting to pay attention to it now with this video. So basically, the BMA, the British Medical Association, have come out and declared a whole new industrial action plan for the 26th and 27th of April. They already have another industrial action plan, strike action. I believe that was beginning on the 8th. No, it's either the 8th or the 6th of April. Let me just quickly check my notes here. Yes, the first one will be taking place on the 6th of April, and it will begin at 8 AM for 48 hours. But for that particular strike, the first one, there will be emergency cover provided. So the second one is really, can't stress enough how groundbreaking this strike is. This is the first time in the history of the country that this has ever happened, and I think that speaks volumes about how desperate that these junior doctors have become. But enough of it, let me go into a little bit of stories. I read this from the source of Sky News, and I'll have both the links. There's two links that will be in the description. One is the news article I saw talking about the new strike, and another one referring to a strike that we had previously this month in March. So let's begin, and I'll just describe pretty much from the article. So, junior doctors within England have announced a full walkout as a form of protest without any emergency cover planned. This means that there will be no emergency medical care provided, I'm assuming, and they will be extremely short-staffed. And yes, this could harm patients. There is a very good chance that this will harm patients. The people will suffer for it, and take that for what you will. I'll get to that in a bit. This is the first ever complete walkout, as I've mentioned before, and has been condemned by the British government. Of course it would be condemned by the British government. The British government are going to want to, apologies for my phone, let me just, there we go. The British government are going to want to demonise doctors for this decision. They're going to want to demonise the British Medical Association, and they're basically going to want to make them seem as nasty as possible for making this decision. Now, that's not really quite the case. That's really not quite the case. So despite the government's attempts, they've already attempted to paint this picture. I'm here to tell you that, in my opinion, that's not the case at all. They've described this as desperate and irresponsible, is what the Department of Health said on this particular strike action, which neither one of those are quite true, in my opinion. The date for the walkout is set for the 26th of April and will include every doctor up to consultant level. Every other industrial action ever taken by the NHS has seen emergency cover present, such as the 48-hour strike which occurred earlier this month in March. There was cover for that strike, so there's a lot of strikes going on for the NHS at the moment. There's a lot of negotiations, there's a lot of failed negotiations, there's a lot of back and forth, and really it's just become a situation that's escalating further and further and further up the scale of, oh my god, this is happening, to the point where now we've got the doctors literally walking away from their jobs as a form of protest because they are completely backed into a corner here, because the Tory government is trying to basically just bludgeon their way through the NHS with this. They're trying to just cut through the opinions and everything of the junior doctors, and they're just saying, well, take it or leave it. That's what we're doing, take it or leave it. And they're leaving it. They're not taking it. They're not standing for it, and good for them for not standing for it. So the British Medical Association has declared that the reasoning behind this strike is the continued refusal of the government to step back from its decision to impose a new contract on junior doctors from August this year and resolve the dispute by re-entering talks. So basically, the government has refused to back down on its contract plans policy. It's continuing to try and get them through. It's not re-entering talks. So they're literally backed into a corner. There's nothing else they can really do about that. So these strikes will happen from 8 AM to 5 PM, I believe, 26 and 27, so about 48 hours. Now, Dr. Johan Malawana, who is the chairman of the British Medical Association, has stated the following, which I'm quoting directly from Sky News, who quoted directly from him. No junior doctor wants to take this action, but the government has left us with no choice. In refusing to lift imposition and listen to junior doctors' outstanding concerns, the government will bear full responsibility for the first full walkout of doctors in this country. The government is refusing to get back around the table and is ploughing ahead with plans to impose a contract junior doctors have no confidence in and have roundly rejected. We deeply regret the disruption to patients, and our message to patients is clear. This action is wholly avoidable, but the government must choose talks over imposition. So there we go, we've got the British Medical Association basically saying that they don't want to do this, they know that it's going to be bad, they don't want to do it, but they feel as if they have absolutely no choice on the table other than to do this because of the government's acts. In response, the Department of Health from the government has released the following statement in regards to the strike. This escalation of industrial action by the BMA is both desperate and irresponsible, and will inevitably put patients in harm's way. If the BMA had agreed to negotiate on statutory pay, as they promised to do through ACAS in November, we'd have a negotiated agreement by now. Instead, we have no choice but to proceed with proposals recommended and supported by NHS leaders. Now, where to even... I stand with the doctors on this, even if I must criticise them for trying to kind of slide off the blame for any harm that comes to patients as wholly the government. At the end of the day, these doctors in the British Medical Association did decide to hold this strike and walk through, so yes, they are forced to do this through the government, but they are the ones that are walking away and leaving their jobs basically on as industrial action. So, as much as they want to... Apologies if you can hear my little brother in the background. Really apologies. So yes, they're basically pushed back into a corner. They've got nothing. They've got nowhere else to go. So they have to make this decision. But any blood would still partly be on their hands as well. Even though I do agree with their decision. But yes, this situation, because from the doctor's point of view, what can they do? Can they just bend over and allow these new contracts to come in place, even though they're all roundly rejected? No, they cannot. They cannot just let the government walk over them, especially if they've all came together and rejected it, and it's the leaders of the NHS that are trying to push it through and recommend it. It's like your manager, your boss at work, trying to push through things that you know yourself as a worker are not going to work. So yes, the government are the ones that can solve this issue. The government are the ones that can... They're the only ones that can take the action that is required to put this to bed, to prevent this from escalating any further than it can. The fact that the junior doctors feel that it is necessary to walk away from their job must speak volumes to the government about how serious they are about this. And it speaks volumes to us, the pure public, as well about how serious this is. We aren't doctors, we don't know what they have to go through on a daily basis, but we can tell from their actions that if it's escalated this to this magnitude, that what the government is trying to bludgeon through is just not on. So of course the doctors in the NHS have my support for this walkout. Yes, patients will most likely be put in harm's way, and that is a sincere regret, but the only what other option do they have at this point in time? The government is trying to bludgeon through. Government is the one who's at fault here for not listening to the junior doctors and not trying to rethink their plans and rethink their policy. It's just not on, in my opinion. I believe that the thing that the government needs to do now is to take whatever action they can to prevent this full withdrawal of services. If that means re-entering negotiations, if that means pulling back on the contract, whatever they can do, they must do it, in my opinion, in order to prevent this walkout. And it is, it's wholly, completely and totally avoidable. It is completely avoidable. Like the chairman of the BMA said, it is wholly avoidable. It's the government that is forcing this, and the government who ultimately are responsible for this. And I just think that it's amazing that for the first time in this country we will see a full withdrawal of services. That speaks volumes to me, and I really think it is something that should give the government paused thought, in all honesty. So what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Leave a comment below if you wish to leave your opinion. Do you stand with the doctors on their decision? Do you stand with the government? Do you think it's irresponsible of the doctors to make such an agreement? Do you think it must happen? Who do you side with? And as always, I look forward to the next video where I can see you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel to become a root subscriber. And I will hopefully see you guys next time. See you then. Take care.